Well, good morning. I'm John Colmel, Chair of the Authority and Canal Corporation, and pleased to be on an interim basis chairing another Finance Committee meeting. As we just discussed, we got a full squad turnout, so very pleased and proud to have Dennis Traynor, B. Gonzalez, Laurie Wheelock, Lewis Warren, Cecily Morris, and Michael Cusick with us today, along with Justin Adam and the distinguished Power Authority and Canal Corporation staff. As always, this meeting has been duly noticed as required by open meetings law, and I'm pleased to formally call it to order. We've all had the opportunity to review the agenda. Unless anyone has any proposed amendments there too, I'd ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Lewis. I think that was all in favor. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a full agenda today, a number of matters to come before us that will all be discussed later in our session. But as we typically do, we will start our meeting in executive session. To do so, I'd ask for a motion to convene such a session pursuant to Section 105 of the Public Officers Law.
So moved.
Second.
Heard seconds and thirds in there. I'll leave that to Karen. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will be back to you in a bit after an executive session. Thank you very much. All right, welcome back, everyone. Pleased to resume our meeting back in open session. I'd ask for a motion to do so.
So moved.
Thanks, Dennis. Second?
Second.
Okay, there was second, third, and fourth in there. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. We're back in session. As always, sure you know votes were taken during the executive session. We're all polled in advance of the meeting to ensure we had no conflicts. Unless anyone has any late-breaking changes, I'll assume the responses received continue to hold. We have a number of program awards and proposals to come before us, but before we do that, as always, and given this time of the year, our CFO, Adam Barsky, will recap the outcomes of the year for us. So, Adam, kick us off.
Up here. Wherever you want to.
Morning, trustees, NIPA staff, members of the public. So just to recap where we look at for the year-end results, I would just preface it by saying these are unaudited. We're going through the audit process now with KPMG. There always could be some adjustments that take place during that process. So, but these are sort of our best idea of where we are right now. I would say 95% chance it should not change with any material changes to that. We are over our target at $131 million net income against a target of $95 million. In terms of the basic components, operating income was a little bit lower than the plan, primarily because of the drop in energy prices that occurred during 23 from the heights that we're seeing in 22, or at least where we thought we were in the fall of 22 as we're putting together the 23 plan. So that made the year a little bit challenging from the on the revenue side. There was also a slight drop in transmission revenues, mostly because of what they call the batch revenue, and that is revenue that's created as a result of congestion in the system. And as I mentioned maybe in previous meetings, that while we didn't have a good idea as how to estimate it at the time, and we'll be able to do that now going forward, but it is a result of because they are actually being done to alleviate congestion, and therefore it's doing what those projects were planned to do, which was reduce the congestion and reduce costs associated with it. So we see some lower revenues as a result of that.
Hey, Adam.
The plan, that's the idea.
Adam?
Yes.
Your audio is not that good. I don't know if it's just on my end or in general, but whether your microphone's not on or your audio is not that good.
Yeah, it's a little low.
Okay, is that better?
Yes. Yes.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So just recapping. So operating income was a little bit below plan because of lower energy revenues, both transmission generation, that is offset by lower expenses. And the expenses came in lower because we had estimated higher costs for pension because of the stock market performance in the year prior, as well as a certain level of OPEB expense, which is a retiree healthcare costs. Those actually came in lower than was planned, so that offset some of the drop in revenues. And the big increase over the plan is a result of the performance of the investment portfolio, as a result of the quite a few number of rate increases by the Federal Reserve, so raise interest rates. And as we saw an increase in interest rates, we're investing the portfolio into some securities that go out a little bit longer than we had traditionally done, so that we'd be shielded a little bit when rates start coming down, as we expect to happen this year. But we had, certainly a lot more of investment income than was originally projected before the Fed started raising rates. So that's really, those are the main drivers of those differences. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just editorially, I mean, as a board, you never like to see non-operating compensate for operating. Operating's, the ongoing business. Non-operating is more a function of spot circumstances that you've just recapped. Again, you're comfortable and confident that whether it be in the budgeting process, operational process, the fact that we effectively broke even at the operating line doesn't give you any pause, correct?
Correct. I think we're well positioned now in 24, given where we see prices are, but where our hedges are in place, so I think we're very well positioned in 24.
Okay. Any other questions for Adam? Consistent with what's otherwise been anticipated and expected, and I'll assume and reasonably confident we won't see any significant change coming out of the audit process. So well done, Adam and team. Well done, Justin and team, on navigating a challenging year and delivering some very positive and solid financial outcomes. Take a lap,
Great, thank you.
Lap around the table.
Sure.
Thank you.
The next slide is just a recap of what was discussed at the last meeting when the board authorized the release of up to $120 million to take advantage of any potential opportunities we might see to refinance any of our debt. As such, we had an opportunity to use $107 million to fund an escrow account invested in treasuries out to the by year the maturities of bonds that were issued in 2007 that were all taxable debt. A certain portion of all of our debt related to our hydro plants has to be taxable by the IRS Treasury Code requirements. So it makes it much more expensive for us to issue that debt than tax-exempt debt. And usually it's very difficult to refinance or call taxable debt because it's usually done on a what they call make-whole basis. But given the fact that the rates of taxable debt today are much greater than the tax-exempt, we had this opportunity to fund the escrow account with treasuries that would economically and legally defease those bonds. So the $107 million is used to avoid $180 million of principal and interest that would have otherwise been due on those bonds, saving $73 million of interest costs over the life of those bonds. And on a present value basis, it works out to be about $17 million or 19% of the total issue. So in that regard, the refinancing was very positive for us, and it was enabled us to strengthen the balance sheet, reduce high cost debt, and provide additional capacity for future capital needs. So it all went according to our overall plan as we had expected. Any questions on that?
And Adam, good job, by the way, for 9 Point Canals. This is a positive outcome. If rates continue to trend as forecasted down, there might be other opportunities to refinance some debt in 2024 as well.
Yes, and we will be watching that, and we'll certainly come to you with any ideas in the future if we see those opportunities that make sense for us.
And Adam, are the benefits of that reflected in our 23 numbers you just recapped?
Yes, they are. Well, so there's an economic benefit going forward. We will actually see interest savings in future years from the interest cost perspective. Those have not been reflected in our plan to date. So we'll see those, every year that there's less overall debt service and less interest expenses hitting the income statement. The principal is really a balance sheet transaction. From an accounting standpoint, it actually results in an accounting loss from the early extinguishment of the debt, which is embedded in our numbers already. So that results in like I said, an accounting loss because you've got $88 million of liabilities that you've taken out. You've on the liability side, you've got $107 million of cash you used to do that. The difference gets recorded as essentially an accounting loss from early extinguishment of debt. But that's already embedded in our numbers. And again, that's a paper number, so that's not cash. So but an economic perspective, major savings going forward.
So is that 19 million, quote unquote, accounting loss reflected? It's in non-operating, it's in mark to market, or where do you have it?
Yeah, it's going to be, it's in a non-interest other expenses for interest expense and other.
Okay. All right. All right, well, good work, as Lewis said. Good play. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions
for Adam? All right, thank you. Thanks for standing up, and we can hear you. Sorry to get you up out of your seat. Next up, Andrew Boulais. Do I have your name correct? I apologize. Boulais.
You do,
Boulais?
sir. Thank you.
Pardon
Boulais.
me? Boulais. All right, I hit it. Proud of myself, Andrew. You've got multiple awards you're going to recap for us here.
Correct.
Take it away.
All right. Good morning. Thank you. I'm here to present 3 items on behalf of operations today. The first item is a set of on-call contracts for program and project management services. Next slide, please. Today, we're requesting that the Finance Committee recommend the approval of 15 5-year personal service contract awards to the entities on the slide in an aggregate amount of $70 million to the Board of Trustees at their February meeting. The authority's current set of value contracts of this nature expire at the end of this year, and these new contracts will help maintain continuity and execution. The authority's annual capital portfolio requires an emphasis on program and project management services to assist staff in the completion of large programs on time and on budget. This set of value contracts complements the program controls on-call contracts that were awarded and approved at the December meeting. The services of these on-call contracts include, but not limited to, project management, program management, construction management, and field EH&S support. In April of 2023, a request for proposal was issued, and while 32 proposals were received in May, 15 are recommended for award, with 7 of those firms being MWBE or SDVOB firms. Many bids will be conducted amongst these suite of contracts for specific scopes of work at the time and when necessary. The vendors were evaluated by a cross-functional team on service capabilities, relevant experience, staffing, safety, MWBE, SDVOB compliance, and commercial terms. Following an extensive evaluation process, the evaluation committee recommends an on-call contract awards to the vendors listed in an aggregate amount of $70 million for a 5-year term. With that, I'll take any questions.
As the typical, so for new board members, just to ensure this is a very routine or typical type scenario where the team comes to us for an appropriation, multi-year appropriation. You can see this equates 14, 15 million a year that they'll manage and navigate among the 15 pre-approved vendors to just improve the efficiency of the solicitation process. The typical presentation or discussion we then have as a board, Andrew, is my focus is more on the 17 that didn't win than the 15 that do, and to ensure one, level playing field, better understand why they were excluded, what are we doing to help them better prepare them to prevail going forward, any other points or thoughts that you have coming out of the RFP process that we're doing to continue to elevate and improve. It's nice that almost half of your providers are BE firms. Obviously, what we want to continue to elevate the percentage. Editorialize a bit on all of that, if you would.
Sure. I think you asked a very similar question back in December when it was Rick Da Silva up here providing an update on program controls. In closing the loop with SSM, we do some amount of outreach, look at historically what the bid results were, where we weren't aligned or they weren't aligned with our objectives for the contract award. And as vendors reach out for post-award debriefs, we entertain those and debrief them on where they can do better.
And are we seeing those who haven't prevailed in the past coming back better prepared and winning some of these bids? Or, how many of the 15 are just our regular providers? How many new players are cracking the code here?
There's actually quite a few on this list that are I'll call it frequent flyers. So they are definitely seeing, I would just glancing at the list here, probably more than half of them are first time awards of this nature.
All right, that's encouraging to hear.
Yeah, and keep in mind one thing too, Chairman, that the this particular solicitation had a pretty good turnout. 32 proposals were received, right?
Yeah.
So it gave us the ability to really kind of go through them and kind of weed out the suppliers who submitted, too many exceptions to our terms and conditions. So a lot of these awards were pretty much terms and exemption free. So it was good. It was a good turnout.
Yeah, no, I agree, John. It's nice to see more than the targeted or wanted number. So hence, I'll take that as a positive sign. On the other hand, I want to ensure we're doing everything we can to grow that population and enable that. So,
absolutely.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Any other questions for Andrew before he moves on to Smart Path Connect? We'll make one motion to address all 3 items that Andrew's presenting. So Andrew, keep trucking.
Thank you, sir. The next 2 items that I'm presenting are value contract increases for the Smart Path Connect project. And as you may recall, at the September board meeting, an additional $40 million was authorized, bringing the total of the project to $830 million. These value contract increases are in line with that authorized amount. And I just want to note here, both on the next 2 items, some of these changes are regulatory driven. Next slide, please. So this first item is a funding increase for the transmission line construction value contract. Today, we're requesting the Finance Committee recommend approval of an increase in funding for the value contract with Michaels Power in the amount of $23.5 million to the Board of Trustees at their February meeting. Due to changes in outages and unforeseen regulatory and permitting requirements that occurred, it's necessitated rebaselining of our schedule, which is leading into increased costs. Through collaboration with a New York independent system operator, the transmission line outages have extended into 2025. However, the targeted in-service date remains the same at the end of 2025. The proposed spending of the project is included in our annual budget, the 4-year capital plan, and payments for the project are made out of the authority's separately financed projects capital fund. The original contract was approved by the trustees May of 2022 for a term of 6 years with no extension required at this time. This proposal brings the value contract total to $299.5 million. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Questions, thoughts for Andrew? Again, as he just referenced, we first acted on this almost 2 years ago. Latest iteration in light of the ongoing evolution and changes. All right. Okay, Andrew. Substations.
All right, the last item I have is a increase for funding for substation construction value contracts. Today, we're requesting that the Finance Committee recommend the approval of increase of funding for the value contract with Michaels Power in the amount of $30.5 million to the Board of Trustees at their February meeting. The substation construction contract was awarded based on a 60% design in order to maintain the project's in-service date by the end of 2025. Through design evolutions leading up to the issue for construction design and including substation conditions, changing regulatory requirements, resulting in substation layout changes, foundation design changes, and additional structural steel needed to meet the design intent. We're now foreseeing additional costs to complete the construction. Items in this increase include, but not limited to, a foundation quantities and sizes, retaining walls, additional bedrock to be removed, and winter work conditions. The proposed spending of the project, as noted on the previous one, is within the annual budget and in the 4-year capital plan. And the payments associated with the project are funded through the authority's separately financed project capital fund. The original contract was approved by the trustees in August of 2022 for a term of 5 years with no extension being required in this recommendation. This proposal brings the value contract total to $139.7 million. With that, I'll take any questions.
Clarify the 60% designs, Andrew, meaning we clarify what that means. It was 60% designed when we first approved it?
Correct. We went out to bid with what was a 60% design effort in order to solicit and secure contracts for the substation work, knowing that there would be design evolutions that would be required from the 60% through to a full 100% design. What we're seeing today is actually above and beyond what we anticipated. Again, regulatory changes, some impacts on because of culturally significant areas and wetlands that have impacted siting of the substations that led to change in foundation and designs.
So are these change orders relative to the original 60% or the remaining 40%?
Relative to the remaining 40%.
Got it. Okay. All right. So the fact that it's a meaningful percentage of the original number is muted by the fact that we're only 60% design coming out of the gate.
Correct.
Okay.
And as a newbie, I'm assuming that's what you anticipate when you start the project, that things are going to change, design specs are going to change when you get to the site, when you get to the spot, when the engineers, update everything. Is that safe to make that assumption?
We did expect some design changes, but this level of design changes was not expected at the substations. The soil conditions, again, regulatory requirements, culturally significant area at one location, wetlands that weren't previously known, all impacted our design efforts, and those were unforeseen.
So you don't know till you get there, kind of simplistically.
Just to some degree. I mean, we do a certain amount of homework up front. Of course, pre-construction, you're going out and you're looking at trying to identify all wetlands that you can up front. You're doing borings so you can understand the subsurface conditions. You do as much as you can up front in order to get that comfort level going into construction or going into a bidding process that you have mitigated as much risk as you possibly could.
And this is Joe Kessler. If I could just add a little flesh to what Andrew is saying, and maybe responsive to the particular question. In many construction jobs, the bid goes out with a more significant design. So I think that's one thing that's a little bit of a difference here as well. So we don't anticipate those kinds of change orders when the design is closer to 100%. In a project like this, and in some cases, what we do is put the solicitation out at a 60% design in order to make sure we're procuring on time, especially fast-paced projects, certain pieces of equipment and things that are certain in that design, and to make sure that we got that procured and locked down before we go any further. So that's one of the reasons. This is not always the case that we go out to 60% for an RFP.
Thank you. You both did a much better job explaining it than I did seeking the explanation. I appreciate that. Thank you.
But just to further clarify Cecily's question, Joe, the original $109 million bid wasn't for the 60% that was designed. It was for the whole project.
That's correct. The entire project at 60% design was bid on. So the further flex that comes out of that, it's not like we designed 60% of the project and that bid represents that. It was designed to represent the full 100% value.
So the fact we have some overrun, Cecily, isn't a surprise, but this is atypical in terms of the percentage overrun, given the early design stage and, more importantly, some of the issues that were encountered that Andrew recapped. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Unless there's any other questions for Andrew, I'd ask for a motion to recommend to the full board adoption of the three awards and proposals that he's just brought before us.
So moved.
Dennis, thank you. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Louis. Unless there's any other questions, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
Well done. All right, next up, update on the collective bargaining agreement with our Canals team, Eric Firnstein. Eric, the podium is yours.
Let's propel. Is it right of order?
I can't start my video. I think Chris might have to do that.
All right, Eric, your video's up.
Okay, good.
You start talking and the video will follow.
Okay, no problem. Good morning to the trustees, executive management team, the NYPA leadership team, and members of the public. Related to the CSEA contract, the contract that we were negotiating expired on June 30th, 2022. We reached a tentative agreement November 17th of 2023. The CSEA ratified it on January 11th, which leads us here. The terms of the new contract are from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2027. It's a 5-year contract. GWIs, 2% for 2022 and 2023, both are retro. 3% beginning July 1st, 2025, 3% beginning July 1st, 2026. In addition to that, there's a lump sum payment of $3,000. It's not added to the base after the union ratification, which already occurred in the board approval. Some of the highlights, in addition to the GWIs, we negotiated a salary scale adjustment that's effective April 1st, 2024, where we agreed to eliminate certain entry-level hiring rates that resulted in a $2 an hour salary scale adjustment that will help Canals in their recruitment and retention efforts for their positions and enable us to remain competitive with the other New York State agencies and authorities. The big exchange for that was the contracting out of work, which we, the authority, gained the ability to contract out certain work to allow us to inspect and address certain canal properties, and it's expected to minimize potential exposure to liability. That was a very huge piece of the finalizing this contract for us. In benefits, there were just minor modifications for reimbursement related to licenses required for certain job titles. Change in the meal allowance is very minor, and safety footwear and clothing and sick leave days. For retiree medical, consistent rate for retirees for cost of medical coverage. The active employees have different rates they pay when they're active. When they retire, the retirees will all pay the same percent for individual and dependent coverage. And a very important piece of the contract was to formally add the addition of Juneteenth, which was already being recognized, but now it's officially earmarked as an additional holiday in the contract, in the CBA.
Eric, our inability to renegotiate this on a more timely basis, can you talk to that? Expired 19 months ago?
We started, well, we had the IBW contract that expired in March of 2022. We also had the PEF contract that expired at the same time. And then we had the UWA contract that expired at the end of 22. So we had 4 contracts expire in the same year. We went, we started negotiating, trying to hit these one by one, but we actually had meetings as far back as November 2022. And for some of these, a lot of the prep was prior to the contract expiration dates. So, you know, we'd like, I think at the end of these contracts, they're all going to expire on the same time again. We're going to have the IBW in July of 2027, PEP is June 30th, 2027, CSEA is 2027, and UWA is 4/30/28. So, you know, we'll have, depending on, you know, the team, the composition of the team, you know, we may have to.
You need to clone yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. And, you know, that's, you know, obviously not a good excuse to have some of these lag out there, but there was ongoing discussions throughout just trying to keep these moving. So
I mean, what's the overall tone of the dynamic with the Canals team? I mean, is there a level of frustration? Are they pleased with the outcome? What's the bigger picture view?
Yeah, I think both entities, PEP and CSA, were very pleased with the outcomes. The discussions were very productive. It wasn't hostile in any manner. And I think both sides came together to really address the needs of both parties for Canals and NYPA Canals Corp. And I don't know, it was a great team effort. We had total support from Dave Mellon's team and his superintendent leadership team. And I don't know, I felt like we had a very great team in the room from the SMEs that deal with the stuff every day on, you know, when they're conducting work and operations.
And bigger picture, does the Canals team feel fully integrated with NIPA? You know, there's no I in team, and we're one team, and geez, we're what, 6 years into all of that, or do they feel that same sense of cohesion and all part of one collective effort?
Yeah, I feel like in general, you know, they're being pulled into the NIPA world, but I still think there's a part of, you know, being part of the state that's there a little bit. But as far as integrating the team from Canals into working with the NIPA personnel, I mean, we have very productive relationships, and you know, I don't view the Canal personnel as Canals. We view them as NIPA, and you know, if I need something, or if the Canals team needs something from us, there's a lot of good conversations happening and leveraging knowledge from both sides, and
Okay.
shared services as well. There's a lot of shared service
Yep.
positions available. So I think it's happening.
All right, good to hear. Questions for Eric? Dennis, any observations?
Yeah, the only observation I have, I'm happy to see that you got rid of some of the entry level positions, because without that, I think you'd have a hard time getting folks to come in. You know, given everybody 2% raise, whether it's the person at the lowest level or the highest level, the lowest level 2% doesn't really bring that higher up. So getting rid of those entry levels really, I think, will help you get some people.
I appreciate that. That was the exact strategy. You hit it right on the money.
Yeah.
And Dennis, that's what he does.
Yeah, no, that's it. It sounds to me, just Eric, thanks for you and your team. It sounds like a very positive negotiations. And when I wanted to get some insight in $3,000 lump sum payment. So that'll be added to the base once this is approved, once the contract's approved. And is that $3,000 for the entire team?
Yeah, it's across the board, but it's not added into the base. It's just a one-time payment. So it's basically a signing bonus.
Yeah,
but
no, I like the concept, and I would ask.
It's an incentive to get everyone to sign. Say yes.
Got it.
Right. And that's what the state, the CSEA with the state contract. They also had a $3,000 signing bonus, so it was in line with the state contract.
That's positive. Thank you.
The signing bonuses work for everybody, no matter the profession.
Right.
All right. Thanks very much, Eric. Unless there's any other questions, could I have a motion
So moved.
to recommend?
So moved.
Okay. Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Nice job, Eric. And we much appreciate the continuing efforts of the entire Canals team, and great to see that recognized and rewarded here. So well done.
Thank you.
Continue with the Canals theme. Dave Mellon, nice to see and hear from you again. You've got some recommendations for additional funding for the 1 or 2 repairs that are needed on the canals.
Good morning, trustees, NIPA staff, and members of the public. So this is a request for additional funding, and specifically we are asking that the Finance Committee recommend the addition of $10 million to the current suite of on-demand infrastructure repair contracts. A little background, these contracts have been in place since 2018. They were awarded for an aggregate amount of just under $58 million at that time for a 5-year term, which expired at the end of 2023. Prior to the expiration, though, a 12-month extension was approved from November of 23 through November of this year, in addition to a $5 million change order, which brought the total aggregate approved amount to $62 million or so. And we are asking that $10 million be added to that for bringing the total to 72 million. And the essence of it is to carry this critical contract to approximately mid-year 2024, at which time we envision that a new series of contracts will be put into place. We expect that those will be ready for board approval sometime in the April to June range. And once the new contracts are in place, we will finish out ongoing assignments with the old suite of contracts and then hop on to the new. And a little bit about the nature of these contracts, the use of these contracts. We've had since 2018 over 140 assignments on these contracts. We average approximately $12 million a year. And there's a few categories of work that are accomplished by these contracts. The biggest two are emergencies and time-sensitive work. So these are either things that break and need to be fixed immediately, or they're things that are uncovered, mostly through the inspection project, which need to be fixed relatively soon, and we cannot wait for a more programmatic approach to some of these infrastructure needs. And so the 62 million isn't thoroughly exhausted at this point, but it's mostly exhausted. I think there's a few $1 million remaining, and we are just looking to extend the overall amount that's available to us in the event we have emergencies or time-sensitive issues arise.
You're satisfied with the performance of these three contractors, Dave? We're not being held hostage here?
No, very much so in terms of the performance of the work. All three of them are doing a great job for us.
So this is merely a function of more work to do as opposed to overruns on existing work or underperformance.
Yeah, there's, like I said, I mean, if there's an emergency between now and say mid-year, you know, it's difficult to predict that, but that based on past history, you know, I think it's fair to say that, you know,
yep,
it will likely break. Our inspection program, as you know, if you recall, we talked about this a little bit at the September board meeting.
Right, yeah, when we were on site.
Yeah, inspection program is on the rise, so we're doing more inspections now than ever. That's uncovering a lot of things that need to be repaired timely.
Yeah, no, we were witness to the reality that confronts you and the team on a regular basis. So, all right. Any other questions for Dave? Happy to hear the extension is expiring, and we will have a formal RFP process middle of the year. So we'll look forward to that, but appreciate the need to bridge you from here to there. So, any other questions for Dave, or can I ask for a motion to recommend this proposal to the full board for adoption?
So moved.
Thank you, Dennis. Second?
Second.
All right. Thanks, B. Keep your boat afloat. All right. Unless there's any other questions, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, our last action item. Last but certainly not least, a very significant project for us, significant project for the state. And this is step one in terms of our financial commitment and involvement with Propel New York. Anna Stakowiak, the podium, virtual or literal, is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm here to request capital expenditure authorization for Propel New York Energy. The recommendation to the full board for capital expenditures in the amount of $50 million initial release for a $500 million investment overall for the project. The project was selected by the NYSO in June of 2023 to address the Long Island offshore transmission need for the state. The project consists of approximately 90 miles of new underground 345 kV transmission lines and that includes submarine portions that go across the Long Island Sound as well. There'll be 4 new substations that are built as part of the project, as well as multiple substation upgrades along the project route. The project in service date is targeted for May of 2030 as required by the NYSO. NYPA is collaborating with New York Transco on the development and execution of the project. The teams are working very collaboratively and well together to date and engaging in early and often stakeholder outreach in Long Island, the Bronx, Westchester, and Queens. So there's an extensive area that the project covers, and so far, so good on that front. So I'm here today to request the $50 million initial release of funding and the $500 million overall project investment.
And as we've chatted, this isn't a project that we're project manager on. I mean, we're a partner and hence a funder. So this is a bit atypical in that we aren't managing directly the execution of these contracts. We're not letting the contracts. So in contrast to some of the other awards where we're very hands-on and we're on the point, we're in the funding role here as a partner in a $3 billion venture. Anna and the team will continue to come back to us as additional funding requests are required and or needed to provide regular updates on the status of the project. So in substance, consistent with, but in form, somewhat different. Obviously, Anna, the whole offshore wind world is a bit in flux. How does all of that and the nuances associated with that impact this project and or us?
This project was awarded directly by the NYSO to meet the transmission need in Long Island. So while it is there capable of delivering the offshore wind, it also increases the resiliency and the reliability of the transmission grid on Long Island and creates those ties from Long Island to the rest of the state. There are 2 ties that go from Long Island to Westchester County and another tie that goes from Long Island into New York City, into the Bronx. Additionally, NYPA was granted the abandonment incentive by FERC in November of 2023. So if there is something that comes out of a regulatory process, as you've mentioned, with the offshore wind potentially being canceled, we would be able to recover what we've invested in the project because we have already been granted that abandonment incentive by FERC.
So our downside risk is mitigated, protected, and we're not an unintended victim of however the offshore developer proposal process plays out. We won't be an unintended victim of that. We've protected ourselves or mitigated that exposure.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, important point for us and everyone to be clear. Okay. All right. Obviously, this will be a continuing dialogue and a key initiative for the state, for the governor, for us. Major investment, $500 million. One we will have active and running dialogue on throughout this year and the years beyond, but exciting opportunity and moment to kick it off in a positive direction. So unless there's other questions, I'd ask for a motion to recommend approval of the $50 million initial investment to the full board.
So moved.
Dennis, thank you. Second.
I'll second as a Long Islander with Dennis. This is an exciting strategic project. So if I could, I would love to second Mr. Trainer.
We'll note that as an exciting and enthusiastic second. All right. Thank you, Louis. Any other questions? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. I agree completely. Louis said exciting day for us and the state, and hopefully the developer wins blow in a positive direction, and this project stays relatively on track. Anna, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Consent agenda, there were a limited number of items there for your review. Approval of our last meeting minutes. Hopefully everyone had a chance to peruse Karen's good work there. And unless there's any other questions, I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Dennis, you came up large on my screen, so you must have been anticipating that motion. All right, Dennis said moved. A second.
Second.
Who was that?
I think that was Lori.
If that was Lori, if you were excited and enthused, or if that was just an excited.
I think it was B, but we're all excited and enthused.
Oh, excited and enthused. I like to hear it, Lori. Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda approved. Unless there's any other matters to come before us, if I missed any other questions, hands up, anybody, anything? Otherwise, we're together as a full board in a couple of weeks, and we'll act on all of the motions and recommendations we've just made. And as a committee, we'll be back together middle of March, March 2nd, for another finance committee meeting. And with that,
Mr. Chairman, may I make an observation?
I thank you again for your time and effort today. Louis, catch a nap later this afternoon, and for a motion to adjourn.
John, before I make a motion, I think someone had a question for you.
Oh, they do? Sorry, I missed it.
Yes, it's B. I just wanted to make an observation that in the consent agenda, item number 13 of the agenda, where we're listing designated holidays. The state of New York, for the first time in 2023, recognized Indigenous Peoples Day as well as Columbus Day. So I'm just wondering if we don't want to put that hyphenated notation into this list. Did that make sense?
I'll defer. So you're looking for clarification of.
So designated holidays, we have Columbus Day there, but as I noted, Governor Hochul recognized Indigenous Peoples Day for the first time in 2023. So I'm just wondering if we shouldn't hyphenate that as one or as both, right? To include Indigenous people.
Indigenous people, got it. All right, Karen, we'll make that amendment. All right.
Thank you.
Full support. No motion needed. Thank you for the clarity. All right.
I'll make a motion to resume. Yep, John.
Dennis, you're going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting? All right,
yes,
B's going to second it. All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you again, one and all. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Talk to you between now and then. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.